Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! So this happened in my second year in college. I moved to a new dorm as the old dorm has some construction issues. The first 2 months in my new dorm are great. My roommates are great, they do their chores and respect everyone's privacy. For an introvert person, this is a score for me because I don't like any unnecessary confrontation. All is well, not until my friend moved in. Let's call her Magna. We're not that close, but we belong in the same circle of friends. Magna is the opposite of us. She is very loud, doesn't do her chores on time, and is always out very late at night, which causes us some disturbance because we should be inside at 11 p.m. She returns at around 2 or 3 in the morning, banging on a door, demanding to be let in. In general, she's a good friend, we're cool except for these bad habits. And that's until I noticed my allowance was quickly decreasing. At first, I thought I might have made some purchases that I have forgotten, or I'm spending so much on food and unnecessary items. And that's why I made a budget with my money, and I quickly noticed that I'm not overspending, but someone is stealing from me. I don't know who though. That's why I decided to purchase a nanny cam to catch the burglar in the act. 2 weeks after installing my nanny cam, lo and behold, I found Magna snooping in my room like a rat. Then she reached for my purchase that was in my wardrobe and stole some bills from me. Upon checking, it was worth $10, and this might be a small amount for you guys, but for a not-so-well-off person such as myself, it's already a big deal, and who knows how long she's been stealing from me. And this is where I hatched the plan. As I said, I don't like any confrontation. So the solution that I see is to steal from her, aka sell her clothes, stuff, and whatever I can find that can suffice the money that she stole. This went up for 8 months. She already stole about $200 from me, and I already sold about 3 blouses, 6 of her dresses, 4 pants, 4 shoes, some of her art mats, branded ones, and her ukulele. Most of these are never worn nor branded items. Why didn't she notice, you might be asking? Because she owns a lot of things and she's so disorganized. Her room is a complete mess. The last straw was when I caught her trying on my clothes. And that's when I called her and told her to get out, as I can see her in my room snooping. She ran and locked herself in her room. I returned to my dorm and went to my room. Surprise, surprise, Magna is nowhere to be found. I wonder why. Later that day, her mother came and told us Magna is moving out. My other roommates are asking what the reason was, and her mother doesn't know. She said she came home crying asking to move out, but not stating the reason. Few months after that, there was no sign of Magna until a party was held. She confronted me saying, "How dare you sell my dress?" I told her I don't have any idea what she's talking about. She told me I sold her dress that was given to her by her late grandmother. She's the one accusing me of being a robber now. I told her between the two of us, I am the one who has proof that she's been stealing from me. And if she wants to cause a scene and accuse me, we will meet in court. She then walked away, and I never saw her since. Eye for an eye, I guess. This happened yesterday. This is more meant as a story than a request for advice, but any advice is welcome. Backstory: we live on a corner lot. The long side of our lot is fairly open, so we obtained permission to plant some trees along the nature strip. They have been in the ground about 12 months and are just starting to get established. A young guy, let's call him Chad, I don't know his real name, who lives across the street seems to have recently bought a Ram 3500. Not wanting to park it in front of his own house, presumably because it's so big, he's decided that he wants to park it along our long property line. Normally, that wouldn't be an issue, except that he appears to want to park it directly opposite the front of his house and on the wrong side of the road, and keeps opening his driver door into the establishing trees. My wife used to park her car in our garage, but in order to protect the trees, she's taken to parking it on the street next to them. So as to prevent Chad from parking his massive truck next to and opening his driver door onto them, Chad is clearly angry and petty about not being able to park his truck wherever and however he wants. One time we headed out to go pick up something in the wife's car, and we noticed Chad has parked his truck nose to nose with the wife's car. Whatever, we get in, drive off, and get to the end of the road and realize we've forgotten something. We turned back to the house, and within that 2 minutes, Chad had run out of his house, started his pickup truck and drove it one car length down to where the wife's car was, and he parked it there, opening his door onto the small tree again, before running back inside. We're in a rush and don't want to be confrontational, and pick up the item and drive off again. This establishes the sort of guy Chad is though. The incident: my wife was mowing the lawn yesterday afternoon and she really enjoys doing garden work and fusses me away anytime I try to help. It's okay, I do all the other handyman projects around the house and she's happy. So it's an arrangement that works for both of us. Anyway, the wife is mowing the nature strip. She'd already mowed most of the front lawn, and the nature strip was the last thing to do. Chad pulls up in his truck at this exact moment, nose to nose with the wife's car, gets out and leaves his door wide open, and goes to fiddle with his jet ski that he leaves on the street parked behind his truck. Now the lawnmower doesn't throw grass, it doesn't have a catcher, but it doesn't have a thrower either. The grass is cut and just drops straight down under the plates. There is a distant lack of grass on the roadside of the curb. Yes, there are some on the footpath, because my wife mowed that edge with the mower half on the lawn, half on the path. But where she runs the wheels along the top of the concrete curb at the gutter curbside, there is next to zero grass at all on our road. Anyway, Chad had his door open for 5 minutes while he was fiddling about with his jet ski. Despite seeing my wife already starting on a nature strip, my wife had waited for this guy to close his door, but despite him seeing her there waiting with the mower, he didn't. There was a lack of grass thrown on her road and how far from the curb he's parked. She thought it would be pretty safe to mow the strip past his open door, right? Wrong. She gives up waiting and runs the mower along the strip past his truck. No grass got in his truck, but her doing this set him off like a rocket. And he's yelling at her, "This is Texas. This is America. You couldn't wait 2 minutes before kicking a whole lot of grass into my truck?" And blah blah blah. I should point out that my wife is American. I'm Australian. We have a blended Aussie/US flag in front of our house. But this guy doesn't seem to understand that's what it is. Apparently assumes we're from Russia or something. And he keeps on ranting about how we do things differently here. Clearly this angry young man was looking for any justification to spit the dummy and feel justified for going full frothy-mouthed. My wife calls me out and she walks away to go find the edge trimmer. After listening to him for about 30 seconds, I didn't want to listen to his nonsense any longer either. So I just turned away, restarted the lawnmower, and ignored him. He then yells out he's calling the police. I say, "Go right ahead, mate," and move away. When the officer arrived, he was mostly switching between trying to look professional and stifling a smile/laugh at the ridiculousness of it all. My wife asked if she should have just pushed his door shut, and the officer laughs and says, "No, better not do that, and he might call me out again reporting that you're trying to steal his truck." We chat for a bit and the officer notices Chad's jet ski isn't locked up and says that Chad must be pretty naive as there has been some vehicle thefts in the area lately, and an unlocked jet ski complete with a trailer hitch is a very easy target. The officer also points out how badly Chad has parked his truck, and on the wrong side of the road nonetheless. And he says he will issue a warning to Chad to park properly in the future. The officer thanks us for our time and departs, both shaking his head and chortling to himself over the silly call-out. Conclusion: I personally suspect Chad left the door open in an attempt to create a situation he could escalate on purpose because my wife's car is parked right where he wants his to be parked. He was itching for an excuse to cause a fuss and to feel justified in doing so. We'd actually ordered some security cameras a few weeks back and they arrived yesterday as well. So we will be installing them as soon as possible. They have audio as well, We've resolved that if any of this happens again, we will be taking out a restraining order on a guy using the new cameras as evidence of his hostile attitudes. So, a little backstory. My younger sister, by 10 plus years, used to have bad social anxiety when she was little, but my parents got her into therapy and she got significantly better throughout the years. Now she's 100% functioning. She's very talkative and funny when dealing with family or friends, and just a bit shy when dealing with strangers. Basically, the only occasions when her old anxiety kicks in is when she's supposed to speak in public or when strangers get confrontational with her. Which is, as you probably understand, what's important to this story. Anyway, enough about my sister. So about 2 years ago, she was 18 at the time. I got back home after being out of the country for several months and decided to take my sister shopping because she had a birthday just a few weeks earlier. She is a very talented artist, and back then she was at a stage when she was convinced that artists are supposed to dress classy, which meant that when I picked her up, she was dressed in gray trousers, white shirt, and a vest. Kind of like this to give you some perspective. My point is she looked very, very official. Anyway, we went shopping. She wanted mainly some painting supplies, and on our way home, I decided to stop in a big hardware store because I needed some stuff for a hiking trip with my friends. She went inside with me and wandered off to look at some other stuff while I did my shopping. I was done maybe in 10 minutes, and as I was pushing my cart towards registers and looking around to see whether I will see my sister, I heard some guy screaming at someone, presumably an employee, about how incompetent they were and that he's getting them fired and so on. Just some general stuff you see here mentioned all the time. I don't exactly remember it to the last word. The guy sounded very angry, used a lot of profanities. I didn't pay much attention. Normally, I'm the kind of person who would probably stand up for that poor employee, but then I was really tired and didn't feel like dealing with it. However, as I was crossing the aisle where this incident was taking place, I realized to my horror that it's not an employee getting screamed at. It's my sister. This guy, who looked like someone dressed an extra from Mad Max into a business suit, he looked really comical, was holding her by her hand, shouting profanities right in her face. She looked absolutely terrified and on the verge of tears. I immediately went into a protective brother mode, sprinted across those 10 meters, and shoved the guy away from my sister, while screaming at him to leave her alone. He let go of her and looked dumbfounded at first. Then he got aggressive, started going off about who I think I am and other nonsense. Then he started shoving me back, but I was much heavier and taller. So I just wrestled him to the ground, where he just kept screaming incomprehensibly. By this point, the commotion had already attracted the attention of an employee who promptly called a manager and a security guard. I told him what happened and the guy calmed down a bit, so I let him go and he started ranting about how he's going to sue us all but didn't try to get physical again. The manager called the police, who took statements from all of us, even my sister, who was finally able to speak normally, and they reviewed the footage from cameras. Apparently what happened before I got involved was this. My sister was checking out some electronics and noticed some headphones or something had fallen out of the shelf. She starts putting it back, and the guy sees her, and since she's dressed in official-looking clothes, he thinks she's an employee or a manager and stands beside her waiting until he gets her attention. My sister plucks him out at first because she doesn't realize he wants something from her. After a while, the guy gets visibly annoyed, grabs her by the shoulder, and flips out on her about how unprofessional she is, and so on. My sister, being as shy as she is shocked and stutters over herself, unable to explain that she doesn't work here. Apparently, this just makes him more mad. He gets progressively more aggressive and actually slaps her. Luckily, not too hard. It was more like the kind of slap you give someone when you want to wake them up. A few seconds later, I appear and you know the rest. So, what happened next? Cops cuffed that psycho, much to his surprise. I remember he actually said, "What the heck are you doing? Why aren't you arresting him? He attacked me." He just wasn't able to comprehend that grabbing my sister's arm and slapping her wasn't okay. He was later charged with assault, and I believe he got probation, a couple hundred hours of public service, and had to attend anger management therapy, We didn't really care. Store manager apologized even though we didn't blame the store in any way, and he gave us some vouchers. My sister was a bit shaken, but she was physically okay, aside from a small bruise from how he held her hand. The end. So this story happened a few years ago at a Michael's craft store. For anyone that doesn't live in an area where they have them, it's pretty much a craft store just like Hoppy Loppy and many others. I have gone there quite often in my life to get more niche things that I can't just get at Walmart. I mostly go there around Christmas, but I'm familiar enough with the store to know where most things are, even though I've never worked there. One day I was shopping and two middle-aged women were going the opposite direction as I was, and one of them saw in my cart some really cute stickers. And they asked me where I had gotten them, and I wasn't far from where I had gotten them, so I walked them over to where they were. I set my cart out of the way and found them to show them where they are. They thanked me and were on their way. I went to go back towards my car when a mother with her two younger kids ran up to me and asked where the bathroom was. I told her it was in the back, sighed and said, "Well, that's what the other lady told me, but I can't find it." I told her, "You have to walk behind the counter where they frame stuff and it's back there down the hall." She thanked me and headed towards the back in a hurry with her two kids. A side note, the area where the bathroom is in the back, but you have to walk near the area where they custom frame pictures. And it's kind of behind the counter, down a little hallway, so if you don't know that, you just end up standing behind the counter, confused as to where the actual bathroom is. You have to go past the counter down the hallway, and that's what she didn't realize. Later, when I was in line, she came up in line behind me with her kids, who were holding crafting kits. I think the girls was like some kind of sand pouring thing, and the boys was, I think, something where you dig up fake dinosaur fossils or something. The lady looked kind of surprised. I turn around whenever I see someone get in line behind me. I just kind of always look around. I guess I'm a bit paranoid. She said, "Oh, I'm sorry." I just looked at her confused. Your kid didn't bump into me or anything." Her daughter was standing kind of close to me and I thought maybe she thought her daughter had bumped into me or something. She says, "No, I mean I thought you worked here when I asked you about the bathroom." I told her it was fine and I had shopped here often, so I knew where it was. I can only assume that she thought I worked there because she saw me helping somebody else find something. Until she mentioned it, I had honestly forgotten.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.